So, we're going to dive into the system behind a true literary legend. And we're not just talking about the stories he told, but the methodical, almost scientific way he figured out how to tell them. This is all about how genius isn't always some random flash of inspiration. Sometimes it's a deliberate, disciplined choice.
This sentence right here, this is the key to everything. It's basically the code that unlocks the work of Gabriel García Márquez, and it's the heart of what we're talking about today. It tells us that the most powerful stories aren't about escaping reality, they're about looking deeper into it, and telling that truth with such incredible confidence that you, the listener, you have no choice but to believe. This isn't about fantasy, it's about a different kind of truth. And that truth, it was born in a single powerful moment.
All right, so here's our roadmap for unpacking that genius. We're going to start with the one moment that completely changed his path. Then we'll rewind a bit to see the 2 decades of struggle that made that moment possible. We'll decode his core philosophy, the unastonished voice. Then we'll get practical and break down his daily system, the 8-to-2 protocol. We'll see how this whole thing just redefined literature. And finally, we'll talk about how you can use this very same code in your own life and work.
Okay, I want you to picture this. It's 1965. Gabriel García Márquez is 38 years old, a struggling writer, family man. He's driving their silver Opel on the highway from Mexico City, headed for a much-needed vacation in Acapulco. And then, it happens. An idea, a voice, a tone, it just arrives fully formed, a lightning strike of total clarity. It was the beginning of the novel he'd been fighting with for 20 years. It was so powerful, so complete, that he physically turns the car around, drives his family all the way back home, and tells his wife Mercedes, "You handle everything for the next 6 months while I write." Little did he know it would actually take 18.
Now, what's so fascinating is that this big U-turn on the highway, it wasn't about chasing fame or a bestseller. Nope, he was after something way harder to pin down, the perfect tone. You see, he'd spent years trying to write like his literary heroes, all cool and detached, but it just never felt right. What he realized on that highway was that the real power was in the voice he actually grew up with. He called it grandmother logic, that deadpan, totally matter-of-fact way his grandmother would tell him these incredible stories about ghosts and omens. And in that moment, he decided to stop trying to sound literary and instead to weaponize that natural, unastonished voice.
And this, right here, is the birth of what we're calling the Márquez Rule. It's more than just an idea, it's a whole system built on this radical belief that your personal history, your family stories, your nostalgia, that's not some sentimental fluff you should be embarrassed about. No way. It is the most potent, authentic, and powerful raw material you have. It's the unique data set that only you possess. But an insight this big doesn't just show up out of nowhere on a highway. It was forged in decades of frustration and discipline.
That moment in the car, it feels like a myth, right? Like some sudden strike of genius. But the truth is, it was the climax of a 20-year journey. It was like pressure had been building and building for 2 decades, and it finally found a release. So to really get the breakthrough, we have to go back and understand the years of struggle that made it happen.
So let's walk this path together. It all starts in the heat of Aracataca, where he's a boy, caught between 2 powerful realities. On one hand, his grandfather, a colonel, teaching him the hard truths of war. And on the other, his grandmother, who talked about ghosts like they were just part of the neighborhood. So for him, magic wasn't fantasy. It was just another version of the truth. This was followed by 20 years of what he called journalistic hunger, a time when he was sharpening his skills as a reporter while his own fiction was going completely unnoticed. It all led him to this point of desperation, a bankrupt writer in Mexico City literally pawning furniture to get by.
Being a broke writer in Mexico City, well, that became his forge. The desperation wasn't just about money, it was creative. He had to face this brutal fact that his approach just wasn't working. And in that struggle, he realized something crucial. Trying to get literary status, trying to sound like other important writers, it was a trap. It was just a distraction from the real work, which was finding his own story in his own voice. He had to systematically unlearn this need for outside approval to finally find his own internal authority.
So what you have to understand is there was this war of perspective happening inside him. On one side, you've got the professional safety net. Seek status, follow the established literary theories, stick to cold, hard rationality. It's safe, it's respectable, but it's not you. And on the other side was what he was slowly discovering, a sovereign tone. This was all about trusting his gut, embracing that grandmother logic, and aiming not for what sounded smart, but for pure, undeniable accuracy. Accuracy to the feeling of his own memories. He chose to ditch the safety net, and from that choice, a powerful philosophy was born.
Okay, this right here is the mindset that gave him the power to write 100 Years of Solitude. It's a philosophy born from friction, from being ignored for decades, and from this deep realization that the only way to make other people believe your story is to believe it so completely yourself that you refuse to act surprised by its most incredible parts. It's a philosophy of just absolute total belief. And he developed a method for this, something we can call radical intuition. And I want you to notice that word, strategy. This wasn't about just sitting around waiting for some mystical inspiration to hit him. No, it was an active, disciplined process. It meant taking a single detail from his memory, a weird family story, an omen his grandmother mentioned, the smell of yellow flowers, and focusing on it with the intensity of a journalist until its magical quality became just a simple, undeniable fact of the world he was building. It's an act of willful, focused belief. And this strategy is what gives you the unastonished voice. This is the core of his entire technique. It's that calm, deadpan tone his grandmother used. Think about it. When you describe a young woman floating up to heaven while folding her laundry, and you do it with the same calm narration as you describe someone making coffee, you give that event absolute authority. Why? Because you, the narrator, are not astonished. And if you're not astonished, the reader isn't either. Your lack of surprise just completely removes their skepticism, and they simply accept the new rules of your reality.
This is so important. What the world would later call magical realism was, for him, not about writing fairy tales. The page was a laboratory. It was a place for a systematic, almost scientific exploration of a deeper kind of truth, the emotional and psychological truth of his family, his community, his continent's history. He was running experiments with reality itself. But a philosophy this powerful is useless without a daily system to bring it to life.
So, how did this big philosophy actually translate into practice? I mean, Marquez didn't just think his way to a masterpiece, he worked his way there. He built a set of concrete, non-negotiable daily habits. He understood that genius needs a structure to flourish. This is the machinery behind the magic.
First things first, he totally rejected the romantic myth of the artist waiting for a muse. For him, writing was a craft. It was a job, just like carpentry. He famously said, "I am a carpenter of words." A carpenter doesn't wait for inspiration to build a chair, right? They show up to the workshop every single day, they pick up their tools, and they build. He believed inspiration wasn't something you wait for, it was something that finds you, but only if you're already at your desk working.
And he built this strict system that he followed religiously, the 8-to-2 protocol. Let's break it down. Step 1, 6 hours of isolated, focused work every single day, from 8 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon. No excuses. Step 2, the genealogy audit. He would meticulously map out his characters' family trees to make sure they felt like real, sovereign people with their own histories, not just puppets for his plot. And Step 3, my favorite, fact-check the fantastic. He'd use his journalistic rigor to find a real-world anchor for even the most magical events, grounding his stories in a foundation of truth to make them feel utterly believable. To write 100 Years of Solitude, he followed this protocol with an almost monastic devotion. And those 6 months he asked his wife for, they turned into 18. 18 months of total isolation in his study. This number isn't just a fact, it's a testament to the immense sacrifice, the discipline, and the sheer force of will it took to execute a vision of that scale. It was a total family commitment to the project. And beyond that daily schedule, there was another pillar to his system, the believing model. It was a set of non-negotiable rules. Rule 1. Never write about something you don't fully, deeply believe in, on some level. Rule 2, be patient. The guy waited 20 years for the right tone. 20 years. Rule 3, ignore trends. While everyone else was chasing literary fashions, he focused only on his own singular vision, what he called the solitude. And finally, embrace foundational naturalness, always coming back to that simple, unadorned, truthful grandmother voice. This entire system would have an explosive effect on the world. So, what was the result of all this? The payoff for applying the Marquez Rule with such incredible discipline wasn't just a successful book that let him pay back his debts. It was a fundamental shift in the entire landscape of global literature. He basically put a continent on the literary map. I mean, think about that transformation. The quiet, watching child from Aracataca, the broke journalist from Mexico City, he became the architect of a new way of seeing the world. He proved that a deeply personal, specific family story, if you tell it with the right tone and unwavering belief, could speak a universal truth.
His work was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1982, which was the ultimate validation that his personal nostalgia was in fact world history.
His legacy is just profound. He completely destroyed the old myth that magic is just for kids, and he replaced it with a new reality, that the deepest truths are often found in the unvarnished reality of the common people, their beliefs, their superstitions, their stories. He taught the world that the magical and the real aren't opposites. They are woven together in the fabric of everyday life. And this is where his journey becomes a lesson for all of us.
Because the journey of Gabriel García Márquez isn't just some fascinating piece of literary history. It's a practical guide. It's a blueprint for anyone in any field who feels like their own life, their own unique experiences are too ordinary to be powerful. Let's bring these lessons home.
So, what's the crucial takeaway here? First, your true power as a creator is directly linked to your willingness to trust your own story, your own personal myths. Second, and this is a big one, stop trying to be literary or professional or whatever the expectation is in your field. Start trying to be accurate to your own vision, your own grandmother logic. And finally, remember that you are not just a passive observer of the world. You are a builder. You have the ability to construct magic from the raw material of your own life, using discipline and belief as your tools.
So I'm going to leave you with this question to think about. Think about your work, your art, your career. What would happen if you had your own Acapulco turnaround? What if you stopped, turned the car around, and committed so completely to your unique tone, your personal truth, that you finally unlocked the magic that's been hiding there all along?
Because ultimately, that is the enduring lesson from Marquez. Magic isn't something that just happens to you. It's a choice, it's a system, it's a discipline. And the most ordinary details of your life are not a limitation. They are the code, just waiting to be unlocked for your own unique form of greatness.